I stared at my phone, reading the text message for the 10th time. The words hadn't changed. Can't make dinner tonight. Emergency meeting with Shanghai clients. Don't wait up. Our 15th anniversary dinner, the one we'd planned 6 months ago. The reservation at Ciel that required pulling strings and calling in favors. The night I'd bought a new dress for, spent 3 hours at the salon preparing for, canceled with a text message. 10 hours before. I set my phone face down on the marble countertop of our kitchen island, the one Daniel had insisted on during our renovation last year. Only the best for the Morgan residents, he'd proclaimed to the designer. Only the best. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I moved to the window of our penthouse, staring out at the Chicago skyline as the afternoon sun cast long shadows between buildings. 15 years of marriage reduced to 11 cold words. No apology. No promise to make. It up to me. Just a command not to wait up. My reflection stared back at me. Olivia Morgan, 43, still attractive in that polished way that comes from expensive skincare and regular Pilates. The woman who gave up a promising career in financial analysis to support her husband's meteoric rise at Morgan Klein Investment Partners. The firm didn't just carry his name by coincidence. Daniel had built it from nothing, with me by his side every step of the way. Every networking event, every client dinner, every strategic decision, I'd been there. Not just as arm candy, but as his sounding board, his unofficial strategic advisor. I'd believed we were partners. In life, if not on the official company letterhead. My phone buzzed again, a calendar reminder for our 8:00 p.m. reservation. I swiped it away with more force than necessary. Shanghai clients, I muttered, moving to our home bar and pouring myself a glass of the Barolo we'd been saving for a special occasion. That's a new one. It wasn't, of course. Daniel's emergency meetings had been increasing in frequency over the past year. Always last minute, always unavoidable, always running, late into the night. I wasn't a fool. I'd suspected for months. But suspecting and knowing are different animals altogether. The knowing had come 3 weeks ago. I took a long sip of wine, remembering the moment with perfect clarity. Daniel had left his laptop open when his mother called. He'd rushed out to the balcony to take the call. Eleanor Morgan never tolerated being sent to voicemail. A notification had popped up on his screen. An email confirmation from the Peninsula Hotel. Suite reservation. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Tonight, our anniversary. I could have confronted him then. Part of me had wanted to. Instead, I'd waited, watched, gathered information like the analyst I'd once been, credit card statements, late-night Uber receipts, a mysterious recurring charge, at a boutique that definitely didn't sell menswear. A second phone I discovered in his golf bag while looking for a lost earring. Locked, of course. But the custom case featured a minimalist design of a fox, the same design I'd later find on a gold lighter in his suit pocket. A lighter that certainly wasn't mine, given that neither of us smoked. The wine tasted bitter now. I set it down, moving to our home office. Daniel believed I didn't know his passwords. He believed a lot of things that weren't true. I opened his email, found the hotel confirmation, and stared at the name attached to the second guest, Sophia Reynolds. A quick search showed she was 28, a former model turned marketing executive at a firm that had conveniently become one of Morgan Klein's clients last year. Her Instagram was full of carefully curated images, exotic vacations, designer clothes, and motivational quotes about building your empire and knowing your worth. The irony wasn't lost on me. I closed the laptop, my decision made. Not confrontation, not yet. Daniel Morgan had taught me something valuable over 15 years. Timing is everything. And tonight, while he wined and dined his mistress in a hotel suite I was essentially paying for, I would set in motion a chain of events that would change both our lives forever. I made my way downstairs to the garage level of our building. The attendant nodded as I approached. "Evening, Mrs. Morgan. Taking the Aston out tonight?" The Aston Martin DB11, Daniel's pride and joy, his 40th birthday present to himself 3 years ago, the car he spent more on maintaining than most. People spend on rent, the car with the custom license plate, MRGN1, because Daniel Morgan always had to be number one. "Just checking something, Jeff," I replied with a practiced smile. "Anniversary surprise." Jeff nodded knowingly. He'd been working in our building for years, had seen the steady decline in Daniel's attentiveness, the increasing frequency of his late nights. The staff always knew. They always saw. The car gleamed under the garage lights, a metallic dark blue that shifted from navy to purple depending on how the light hit it. I ran my hand along its flawless finish, remembering Daniel's face when he'd first brought it home. The pure joy, the pride. "This is a legacy piece, Liv," he'd told me. "The kind of car they don't make anymore, investment-grade automotive art." I opened the driver's door with the spare key I rarely used. The leather interior still smelled new. In the glove compartment, I found what I was looking for, the title and registration. And something else. A small velvet box. My heart skipped. For one ridiculous moment, I thought it might be an anniversary gift he'd hidden there. Inside was a pair of fox-shaped gold cufflinks, matching the lighter, matching her. I closed the box with a snap and pocketed it along with the car's documents. I had one more stop to make. Back in our apartment, I changed into the dress I'd bought for tonight. A deep red silk that cost more than my first month's rent in Chicago 15 years ago. I did my makeup carefully, precisely, armor for the battle. Ahead. Then I went to our safe, hidden behind a painting in Daniel's study. Another code he thought I didn't know. Inside were various documents, some jewelry, and emergency cash. I took only what was legally mine. My grandmother's pearls, the diamond earrings I'd inherited from my mother, and my own passport. I left his Rolex collection untouched. I wasn't a thief. I did, however, take photographs of certain documents, banking information, client lists, evidence of some creative accounting Daniel had implemented last year when he thought I wasn't paying. Attention, insurance, not blackmail. There's a difference. My phone buzzed with a text. Not Daniel. He was surely occupied. It was my sister Kate. "Happy anniversary. How's the fancy dinner? Make him take lots of pictures. I want to see that dress." In action, I stared at the message, then made another decision. I called her. "Kate, I need a favor. A big one." 2 hours later, I sat across from Victor Chen in a private room at the Drake Hotel. Victor had been my boss 15 years ago, before I left financial analysis to support Daniel's ambitions. He'd also been my friend, one of the few I'd kept. "I must say, Olivia, this is unexpected." Victor studied me over his whiskey. "When you called, I assumed you wanted restaurant recommendations for your anniversary." "Life is full of surprises," I replied, sliding a folder across the table, some less pleasant than others. Victor opened it, scanning the contents, the Aston Martin's title, now with a fresh signature transferring ownership, and a business proposal I'd been quietly refining for months. "You're selling me Daniel's car?" His eyebrows rose. "Does he know about this?" "It's in my name," I said simply. "A tax strategy Daniel implemented last year. He put several assets in my name to create a more favorable situation for his company holdings." Victor's eyes narrowed. He hadn't become one of Chicago's most successful venture capitalists by missing details. "And the business plan? Morgan Financial Analytics?" He tapped the second document. "This has nothing to do with Daniel's firm." "Correct. It's mine. a boutique financial analysis firm specializing in identifying overlooked investment opportunities for female entrepreneurs. I took a sip of my martini. Something the market desperately needs. And you're using his car to fund it. I'm using my car to fund my business, I corrected. The car is worth approximately $240,000. I'm offering it to you for $220,000 cash tonight. In return, you get a prestigious vehicle at below market value, and I get seed money for my venture. Victor leaned back, studying me with new eyes. Not as Daniel Morgan's wife, but as Olivia Winters, the analyst he'd once called the most promising talent of her generation. What does Daniel think of this new venture? I smiled without humor. Daniel is currently indisposed with his 28-year-old mistress at the peninsula, where they're celebrating what should have been my 15th wedding anniversary. Victor's expression shifted from surprise to understanding to something like respect. I always said he didn't deserve you, he said quietly. Then he pulled out his phone. I'll have the money transferred immediately. My collection has been missing. A proper British Grand Tourer. As Victor arranged the transfer, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Not the fiery rage of a scorned woman, but the cool determination of a strategist seeing 6 moves ahead. By midnight, I had $220,000 in a new business account, a signed lease on a small office space in the West Loop, and the beginning of a new life. As I returned to our penthouse, which wouldn't be ours much longer, I received one final text from Daniel. Meeting running late, staying at the office, early flight to Shanghai tomorrow. Left your anniversary gift on the dresser. On the dresser sat a small blue box. Inside was a diamond pendant that must have cost at least $15,000. Accompanying it was a card. To my supportive wife. Looking forward to the next 15. Love, D. I placed the pendant back in its box and set it aside. Then I removed my wedding and engagement rings, placing them next to Daniel's gift. I wouldn't be needing either anymore. I spent the night setting up my new company's infrastructure, website domain, email addresses, business registration forms. By dawn, the framework of Morgan Financial Analytics was in place. Yes, I kept the Morgan name. After 15 years, I'd earned it. Daniel could fight me for it if he wanted, but I suspected he would have bigger concerns very soon. I was finalizing my list of potential clients when I heard the elevator to our penthouse activate. 5:47 a.m. Daniel returning from his office, no doubt to shower and change before his fictitious Shanghai trip. I closed my laptop and waited at the kitchen island, dressed in a crisp white blouse and black pencil skirt, ready for my first day as CEO of my own company. The elevator doors opened, and Daniel stepped out, looking rumpled but pleased with himself. He froze when he saw me. Liv? You're up early. He quickly recovered, moving to kiss my cheek. I turned, letting his lips meet air. Did you get my gift? I did, I replied, my voice steady. Very generous. I have something for you too. I slid an envelope across the counter. Inside were photos. Daniel and Sophia entering the peninsula, time-stamped. Daniel and Sophia at dinner 2 weeks earlier. Daniel and Sophia in Cabo San Lucas. Last month, a trip he'd claimed was a client golf retreat. He stared at the photos, his face cycling through shock, anger, and calculation faster than most people could follow. But I'd had 15 years of reading Daniel Morgan's expressions. Olivia, I can explain. No need, I interrupted calmly. I'm not interested in explanations or apologies. I'm interested in divorce. He straightened, adjusting his rumpled suit jacket, a man preparing for negotiation. You're upset. I understand. We should discuss this when we're both calmer. I'll cancel Shanghai and... There is no Shanghai trip, Daniel. There never was. I opened my laptop, turning it to show him the confirmation email from the peninsula. Just like there was no client golf retreat in Cabo, no late meetings with the Singapore investors last month. No emergency calls with Frankfurt that kept you out until 3 a.m. His eyes hardened. Daniel in business mode now. Fine. You've made your point. We'll call my lawyer, work out a fair settlement. The prenup. The prenup became invalid when you commingled our finances last year, I cut in. Remember that tax strategy? Putting assets in my name? The house, the cars, the vacation property in Michigan? He paled slightly. My lawyers would contest that. They might try, but there's more. I opened another folder on my laptop, showing financial records. These questionable transactions with the Harrison account, the unreported meetings with GoldenTree before the merger announcement, the offshore accounts. You're threatening me? His voice dropped, dangerous now. After everything I've given you? Not threatening, setting parameters. I closed the laptop. I don't want a messy public divorce any more than you do. It would hurt the firm, hurt your reputation. So here's what's going to happen. We'll file citing irreconcilable differences. I keep the Michigan property, my personal accounts, and full ownership of Morgan Financial Analytics, my new firm. You keep this penthouse, your company, and your reputation intact. Your new firm? Confusion joined the anger on his face. Financial analysis firm. Funded through the sale of the Aston Martin. I smiled at his shock. Which reminds me, Jeff will need the garage space for the new tenant moving in next week. Daniel's face flushed dark red. You sold my car? My DB11? That's mine, I finished for him. Legally. Check the title. Your tax strategy, remember? He looked like he might explode, hands clenching into fists, then suddenly deflated, calculating the cost of fighting me. This isn't over, Olivia. Oh, but it is, Daniel. I stood, gathering my things. 15 years. That's what you threw away for Sophia Reynolds. I hope she's worth it. I moved toward the elevator, then paused. By the way, I took the liberty of clearing my schedule for the next few weeks. No sense maintaining the fiction of the supportive corporate wife. Sophia can take over those duties. Now! The elevator arrived with a soft chime. Where are you going? He demanded, still struggling to process how completely the balance of power had shifted. To work, I replied simply. I have a company to build. As the elevator doors closed on Daniel's stunned face, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Freedom. Not the illusory freedom of expensive vacations and designer clothes, but the real thing. Freedom to create, to lead, to become the woman I'd set aside 15 years ago. Morgan Financial Analytics would succeed or fail on my terms, my vision, my rules. And as for Daniel and his young mistress, they were about to learn a valuable lesson about the woman they'd underestimated. I stepped out of the elevator into the crisp morning air. The first day of my new life laid out before me like an open road, but this was just the beginning. Daniel Morgan might have taught me about timing, but he was about to learn something far more important. Never underestimate a woman with nothing left to lose. The car that waited for me wasn't an Aston Martin. It was a sensible black Audi I'd purchased yesterday. Practical, professional, mine. As I slid behind the wheel, my phone buzzed with a text from Kate. Operation Phoenix complete? Need reinforcements? I smiled, typing my reply. Phoenix rising. Stand by for instructions. Then I drove toward the West Loop, toward my new office, toward the future I was finally claiming for myself. Behind me, the penthouse shrank in my rearview mirror, along with the life I'd thought was mine. Ahead lay uncertainty, challenge, and for the first time in 15 years, possibility unbound from Daniel Morgan's ambitions. I'd been Daniel Morgan's supportive wife for 15 years. Now it was time to become Olivia Morgan, CEO, and I was just getting started. My new office in the West Loop wasn't impressive. Just 800 square feet on the 4th floor of a renovated industrial building. No marble countertops, no floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. No original artwork carefully selected by the interior designer Daniel had hired for Morgan Klein. But it was mine. Every square foot. Every decision. I set my purse on the empty desk I'd purchased yesterday and surveyed my kingdom. Exposed brick walls, concrete floors, 2 small offices and a conference room with glass doors. The furniture would arrive tomorrow, along with the IT setup. Today was about laying groundwork. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since I'd left the penthouse. Daniel had called 6 times, then switched to texts. "This is insane, Olivia. Let's talk this through rationally. You're making a massive mistake. My lawyers will be in touch." I muted the notifications and focused on my task list. I'd given myself 2 weeks to get Morgan Financial Analytics operational. 2 weeks before clients would walk through those doors expecting a polished professional firm ready to analyze their financial situations. The irony wasn't lost on me, that the skills making this possible were ones I'd honed as Daniel's unofficial partner. Planning events, managing contractors, creating seamless professional experiences. For 15 years, I'd applied those talents to enhancing his image, his success. Now they would serve my own. A knock on the door interrupted my thoughts. Kate stood there, arms laden with coffee, pastries, and a small potted plant. My younger sister by 4 years, she'd always been the family rebel, dropping out of business school to pursue interior design, divorcing her perfect-on-paper husband after 2 years, building her own design firm from scratch. I should have paid more attention to her example. "Welcome to entrepreneurship," she announced, setting everything down on my empty desk. "It's terrifying, exhilarating, and the best decision you'll ever make." I accepted the coffee gratefully. How mad was Mom when you told her? Our mother, Patricia Winters, was old-school Chicago society. Marriages were for life. Appearances mattered above all. Scandals were to be avoided at all costs. On a scale of 1 to nuclear meltdown, Kate grimaced. "Let's just say she's already called Father McDermott to discuss your immortal soul." I laughed despite everything. "She does realize Daniel's the one who cheated, right?" "Details." Kate waved dismissively. "You're the one disrupting the social order. Daniel's transgression is practically expected in her worldview. Wives endure. Men wander. Something about the natural order." I sipped my coffee, thinking of all the country club luncheons where exactly that philosophy had been reinforced. The knowing looks between women when certain men's names came up. The quiet advice to focus on your blessings when marriages faltered. What about Dad? Our father, Thomas Winters, had been quieter, less concerned with social standing, more focused on his academic career. Surprisingly, Team Olivia. Kate smiled. "Said it was about time you used that brain of yours for something besides organizing Daniel's life." Then Mom gave him that look, and he pretended to be very interested in his crossword puzzle. A text lit up my phone from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Sophia. We need to talk." I showed Kate the screen. Her eyebrows shot up. "The Mistress is reaching out?" Bold move. "Probably Daniel's idea," I replied, setting the phone aside without responding. "He's realizing his tax strategy backfired spectacularly. He'll try any angle to regain control." "Are you worried about what he might do?" Kate asked, suddenly serious. I considered the question. Daniel's dangerous when cornered, but he's also practical. A public battle hurts his reputation, the firm's standing client confidence. He'll fume, threaten, then eventually calculate the most efficient exit from this mess. "And that protects you?" "That," I said, pulling out my laptop. "And this." I showed her the file I'd compiled. Financial records, communications, evidence of ethical corner-cutting that wouldn't quite qualify as illegal, but would raise serious concerns with clients and regulators. "Insurance policy," I explained. "Not for blackmail, just protection. Daniel understands mutually assured destruction." Kate studied me with new eyes. You know, Liv, I always thought you dimmed your light for him. Played the supportive wife role so long you forgot who you were, but maybe you were just waiting for the right moment. Maybe I was, I agreed. Or maybe I just reached my breaking point. I closed the laptop. Either way, I've got work to do. Kate stood. Your furniture delivery is scheduled for 8 a.m. tomorrow. I've arranged for painters this afternoon. That beige has to go, and the IT people will be here at noon. Anything else your fairy godmother can magically produce? I smiled, genuinely touched. Just your support. It means everything. You've got it. She hugged me fiercely. And Liv, I'm proud of you. Terrified for you, but so damn proud. After Kate left, I spent the morning calling potential clients, former colleagues, connections from charity boards, women I'd met through various events who ran their own businesses. I didn't mention the divorce, just that I'd launched my own firm specializing in financial analysis for women entrepreneurs. By noon, I had 3 meetings scheduled for next week. Small clients, but a start. The painters arrived at 1, transforming the beige walls to a clean white with navy blue accents, professional, without being sterile. My new brand colors, nothing like the burgundy and gold of Morgan Klein. My phone buzzed again. Daniel. Against my better judgment, I answered. Yes? I've been calling all morning. His voice was tightly controlled. The Daniel Morgan that clients and colleagues saw. Reasonable, measured, commanding. I've been working, I replied. Starting a business takes focus. Olivia, be serious. This little rebellion has made your point. I was wrong. I apologize. But this firm of yours, it's not realistic. Come home. We'll discuss terms. The condescension in his voice, the absolute certainty that I would fail without him, ignited something cold and hard in my chest. No, Daniel. There's nothing to discuss. I've made my decision. The car, he said, voice hardening. You sold. My car. My car, I corrected. And yes, I converted an underperforming asset into venture capital. A sound financial decision. A sharp laugh with no humor. You think this is a game? You think you can just walk away and take what's mine, after everything I've given you? Given me? I kept my voice level. I gave you 15 years, Daniel. 15 years of support, counsel, and partnership. I helped build Morgan Klein as much as you did? From the sidelines, he scoffed. Planning parties and charming wives doesn't qualify as building a company. You know it was more than that. Who analyzed the Westridge acquisition? Who spotted the opportunity with Green Tech before anyone else? Who talked you out of the disaster that would have been the Palmer merger? Silence. Then, that's different. No, it's not. I just didn't get the credit, or the title, or the compensation. I took a breath. This conversation is pointless. Contact my lawyer if you have anything substantive to discuss. I will, he promised, voice cold. And Olivia, you've drastically miscalculated. I built my success. You were along for the ride. Without me, you're nothing. I ended the call and set the phone down carefully, refusing to let my hands shake. Doubt crept in, unwelcome but persistent. Was he right? 15 years is a long time to define yourself through someone else's success. What if I couldn't do this? What if Morgan Financial Analytics failed before it even truly began? My phone buzzed with an email. Victor Chen. Olivia. Had breakfast with Sarah Levenson this morning. Mentioned your new venture. She's interested in discussing her foundation's investment portfolio. Contact info attached. The Aston drives beautifully, by the way. Worth every penny. Victor. Sarah Levenson. The Sarah Levenson. Her family foundation managed over $300 million in assets and was a cornerstone of Chicago philanthropy. I'd met her several times at events, always as Daniel's wife. She'd been polite but distant, until last year's literacy fundraiser when we ended up seated together. We'd spent the evening discussing investment strategies for nonprofits, and she'd seemed genuinely impressed by my insights. A potential major client, handed to me by Victor. Maybe Daniel was wrong. Maybe I wasn't nothing without him. By the end of the day, I had a freshly painted office, appointments with 7 potential clients including Sarah Levenson, and the beginnings of a business plan that could actually succeed. I was exhausted, but exhilarated as I drove to Kate's condo in Lincoln Park, where I'd be staying until I found my own place. No way was I sleeping in the penthouse another night, not with Daniel's things there, not with 15 years of memories etched into every room. Kate's place was the opposite of the sterile luxury I'd grown accustomed to, eclectic, colorful, filled with art and books and life. She greeted me with wine and takeout from our favorite Thai place. "So," she said, curling up on her oversized sofa. "Spill. How was day 1 of the rest of your life?" I told her everything. The clients, the office, the call from Daniel. "He's scared," Kate observed. "Men like Daniel only lash out when they're terrified. You've challenged his entire worldview. In his mind, you existed to support his success. Now you're competing with him. I'm not, though," I argued. "Different market, different services. Doesn't matter. You're establishing yourself as his equal. That's the threat." She topped off my wine. "What did lawyer Rita say?" Rita Chen, Victor's sister and one of Chicago's top divorce attorneys. I'd called her immediately after deciding to leave Daniel. She's prepared for his team to contest the prenup invalidation, but she's confident. The commingling of assets is clear, and she's found precedents. Plus, we have the leverage of what I know about his business practices. "And the girlfriend?" Kate asked. "Any more communication from her?" I shook my head. "Just that one text." I didn't respond. "Good," Kate nodded approvingly. "Let her wonder. Let her worry." My phone buzzed again. An email from an unfamiliar address. Reynolds of foxmarketing.com, Sophia Reynolds. "Olivia, I understand why you ignored my text, but this affects my professional reputation too. Daniel is telling clients I knew nothing about his marriage situation. That it's all a misunderstanding. We need to coordinate our responses. Please call me. Sophia." I showed Kate the email. She let out a low whistle. "Wow. So she's worried about her professional reputation while sleeping with a married man? The cognitive dissonance is impressive." I closed the email without responding. Whatever game Sophia and Daniel were playing, I wanted no part of it. "Daniel will try to paint you as the villain," Kate warned. "The vengeful wife lashing out, taking his car, starting a competing business." "Let him try," I replied. "Chicago's financial community is small. People know us both. They'll draw their own conclusions." The truth was, I didn't want a public battle. Didn't want to expose Daniel's affair or his financial maneuverings. Not out of loyalty to him, but because I refused to be defined by his betrayal. Morgan Financial Analytics would succeed on its own merits, not as a footnote in a scandal. Sleep came fitfully that night. Dreams of empty offices, laughing clients, Daniel's mocking face. I woke at 4 a.m., mind racing with all the things that could go wrong. Instead of fighting it, I got up, made coffee, and worked. By the time Kate emerged at 7:30, I had completed the firm's financial projections, drafted service packages, and outlined my pitch for Sarah Levenson. "Did you sleep at all?" Kate asked, eyeing the stack of papers strewn across her dining table. "Enough," I lied. "I'm meeting the furniture delivery at 8 Wah." Kate studied me, concerned. "Liv, this is a marathon, not a sprint. You don't have to prove yourself in 2 days." "I have something to prove to myself," I replied. "That I can do this. That 15 years with Daniel didn't erase who I was before." Kate's expression softened. "And who was that?" "I sometimes forget there was an Olivia before Daniel." I thought, back to my days at Chen Financial, before I met Daniel at that charity gala. 28 years old, rising star analyst, confident in my abilities and my future. Someone who never questioned her worth, I said finally. Someone who knew exactly what she brought to the table. Kate squeezed my hand. She's still there. And she's got this. I arrived at the office as the furniture delivery truck pulled up. The next few hours were a blur of directing placements, overseeing IT installation, and coordinating with the signage company. By noon, Morgan Financial Analytics looked like a real firm. Modern, but not trendy. Professional, but not sterile. Exactly the image I wanted to project. My phone buzzed. A text from Rita Chen. Daniel's lawyers reached out. They want a meeting. Thursday, 2 p.m., my office. I texted back my agreement. Better to face Daniel with legal representation present. Another text arrived moments later, this one from an unknown number. I know what you're doing. It won't work. You'll regret this. SS. Sophia? Or someone else from Daniel's circle? I showed it to Rita when she called to confirm Thursday's meeting. Document everything, she advised. Don't respond, but keep records. If they're moving to intimidation, it shows weakness in their position. By late afternoon, I was reviewing potential client files when my office door opened without a knock. Eleanor Morgan stood in my doorway, immaculate as always in a tailored Chanel suit, her silver hair perfectly coiffed. Daniel's mother, my mother-in-law, for 15 years. So, she said, looking around with barely concealed disdain. This is your little project. I stood, keeping the desk between us. Eleanor had never approved of me, despite my efforts to be the perfect daughter-in-law. In her eyes, no woman was good enough for her only son. Eleanor. What a surprise. I kept my voice neutral. What can I do for you? She set her Hermes bag on one of my visitor chairs. You can stop this nonsense and come home. Whatever Daniel did, it doesn't justify destroying 15 years of marriage. I'm not destroying anything, I replied calmly. I'm building something new, she waved dismissively. This little temper tantrum. Selling his car, moving out, starting this, she gestured around the office. Whatever this is, it's beneath you, Olivia. How did you find me? I asked, ignoring her dismissal. Chicago's financial world is small. Word travels. She fixed me with her steely gaze. Daniel made a mistake. Men do. But publicly humiliating him, taking what's his, that's unforgivable. The car was mine, stated flatly. Legally. Your son's tax strategy put it in my name. A technicality you're exploiting. Her voice hardened. Daniel built everything you have. Without him, you'd still be a junior analyst living in some dreary apartment. The same argument Daniel had made. Like mother, like son. Actually, I corrected her. I was one of the top-performing analysts at Chen Financial before I met Daniel. I gave up my career to support his. A sacrifice I'm now rectifying. By competing with him, she scoffed. This firm of yours, it's a direct attack. Morgan Financial Analytics specializes in helping women entrepreneurs identify investment opportunities. It's an entirely different market from Morgan Klein. You're using his name, she accused. It's my name too, I reminded her. For 15 years. Eleanor stood, retrieving her bag. Think carefully about your next steps, Olivia. The Morgan family has deep connections in this city. Daniel will recover from this indiscretion. But you? If you persist with this vindictive campaign, you'll find Chicago a very cold place. The threat hung in the air between us. Thank you for your concern, I said, moving toward the door. But my decision is made. As she reached the threshold, Eleanor turned back. He loved you, you know, in his way. His way wasn't enough, I replied, simply. Goodbye, Eleanor. After she left, I sank into my chair, trembling slightly. The Morgan family's influence in Chicago's business and social circles was considerable. If they mobilized against me, doors would close. Opportunities would vanish, but they'd underestimated me before. The quiet, supportive wife who noticed everything, remembered everything, learned everything. They were underestimating me still. My phone buzzed with a text from Kate. SOS from the battlefront? I smiled despite everything. Eleanor paid me a visit, standard threats and guilt tactics. Kate's response was immediate. Need reinforcements? I can be there in 20 with wine and war plans. I'm okay, I replied. Just another test. I'm not backing. Down. As if summoned by my defiance, an email notification appeared on my screen. Sarah Levenson, confirming our meeting tomorrow. A potential major client, despite Eleanor's threats. I spent the rest of the afternoon preparing for that meeting, refusing to let Daniel or Eleanor derail my focus. By evening, I had a comprehensive proposal for the Levenson Foundation's portfolio, identifying 3 specific investment opportunities they'd overlooked. As I locked up the office, my phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. Last. Warning. Back off or everything comes crashing down. I saved the message with the others, adding it to my growing file of documentation. These threats only reinforced my resolve. Driving to Kate's condo, I noticed a black SUV following several car lengths behind. It stayed with me through multiple turns, only breaking off when I pulled into Kate's secured garage. Daniel? Eleanor? Or just my heightened paranoia? I took a picture of the vehicle and its license plate just before it disappeared around the corner. Insurance, not paranoia. There's a difference. Kate was waiting with dinner and questions about Eleanor's visit. I gave her the highlights while checking my email one last time. A new message had just arrived from Victor Chen. Olivia. Heard some concerning rumors today. Daniel is telling people you stole proprietary information from Morgan Klein. Claimed, you're using their investment models for your new firm. Obviously nonsense, but thought you should know. Stay strong. Victor. So that was their angle. Not just a vengeful wife, but a corporate thief. I forwarded the email to Rita, adding it to our documentation for Thursday's meeting. Daniel was escalating, which meant he was worried. Good. He should be. Because despite Eleanor's threats, despite the mysterious texts, despite Daniel's attempts to undermine me, Morgan Financial Analytics would open its doors to its first real client tomorrow. And Olivia Morgan, no longer defined by her marriage or her husband's success, would begin to reclaim 15 years of submerged potential. The war was just beginning, but I'd already won the first battle, and tomorrow would bring another opportunity to prove that I wasn't nothing without Daniel Morgan. I was everything I'd always been, just finally free to show it. The morning of my meeting with Sarah Levenson dawned with a fresh complication. Rita called as I was preparing to leave Kate's condo. Olivia, we need to talk before your meeting with Daniel's lawyers tomorrow. Something in her tone made me pause. What happened? They've filed a motion claiming you misappropriated confidential information from Morgan Klein. They're seeking an emergency injunction to prevent you from operating your business pending investigation. My stomach dropped. They can't do that. I didn't take anything proprietary. Of course they can't, but that's not the point. It's about disruption, delay. Every day you can't operate is a win for them. Rita's voice was calm but serious. Do you have any documentation that could support their claims? Anything they might twist? I thought of the files I'd photographed, financial records, client lists. But I hadn't used any of it for Morgan Financial Analytics. Hadn't even looked at most of it since copying it. I documented some of Daniel's questionable business practices as insurance, I admitted. But I haven't used any of that information for my business. My client approach is completely different from Morgan Klein's. They'll argue intent, Rita said, and perception matters in financial services. Even the suggestion of impropriety could damage your reputation before you've established it. So what do we do? For now, Proceed as planned with your client meetings. I'm preparing our response. But Olivia, be careful. Document everything. Record your client meetings if they'll allow it. We need to prove your approach is original. I ended the call feeling shaken but resolute. Daniel was playing dirty, attacking the one thing I couldn't afford to lose, my professional credibility. I arrived at the office early to prepare for Sarah Levenson. The furniture was all in place now, creating the professional atmosphere I'd envisioned. My assistant Megan, a recent finance graduate I'd hired yesterday on Kate's recommendation, was already organizing client folders. Ms. Levenson's office called, she informed me. They've pushed the meeting back an hour, something about a board call running long. I nodded, grateful for the extra preparation time. Thanks, Megan. Can you pull up the Levenson Foundation's most recent public filings? I want to double-check something. As Megan worked, I reviewed my presentation one last time. My approach focused on identifying overlooked investment opportunities in women-led businesses, a sector the foundation had expressed interest in, but hadn't substantially invested in yet. My phone buzzed with a text from Kate. Lunch after your big meeting? I want to hear everything. I smiled, typing back. It's just a preliminary discussion. Don't jinx it. Another text arrived, this one from the unknown number. Hope you're prepared to lose everything. First client, then firm. S.I. Showed Megan the message. If any more of these come in, add them to the documentation file for Rita. She nodded, eyes wide. Is someone threatening you? Just trying to intimidate me, I corrected. There's a difference. At 11 a.m., Megan announced Sarah Levenson's arrival. I took a deep breath, straightened my navy blue dress, another item Daniel had never seen, purchased yesterday with Kate, and went to greet her. Sarah Levenson was in her 60s, small but formidable, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She'd built her late husband's modest manufacturing company into a global enterprise before turning her attention to philanthropy full-time. Olivia, she said, accepting my handshake. Quite a change from when we last met. You were organizing that literacy fundraiser, weren't you? Yes. Last September. I led her to the conference room where I'd set up for our presentation. Thank you for making time to meet. I know your schedule is demanding. She settled into a chair, glancing around the space. New venture, new location. Victor speaks highly of your financial acumen. Says you were the brains behind several of Morgan Klein's most successful strategies. I kept my expression neutral. That's generous of him. Daniel and I worked as a team. Her tone suggested skepticism. Well, I'm interested in your approach for the foundation. Victor mentioned you specialize in identifying opportunities others overlook. For the next hour, I walked her through my analysis of the Levenson Foundation's current portfolio and my recommendations for rebalancing toward emerging sectors with strong growth potential, particularly in women-led enterprises. Sarah asked, sharp, pointed questions that tested the depth of my knowledge and the rigor of my analysis. I answered each one without hesitation, drawing on years of financial expertise that had remained sharp despite my unofficial role at Morgan Klein. This approach, she said, tapping my recommendation for investment in a women-led biotech startup, it's quite different from Morgan Klein's standard playbook. It is, I confirmed. Morgan Klein tends toward established sectors with proven track records. My approach identifies higher potential opportunities in overlooked areas, higher risk, but significantly higher reward potential. Sarah studied me for a moment. And you developed this methodology independently? The question wasn't innocent. She was asking if I'd brought proprietary Morgan Klein strategies to my new firm. My analysis framework is based on principles I developed during my time at Chen. Financial, before my marriage. I've refined it over the years through independent study and application. I met her gaze directly. Every recommendation I've provided is based on publicly available data and my own analytical methodology. Something in my answer seemed to satisfy her. She nodded once, then gathered the materials I'd prepared. I'll need to discuss this with our investment committee, of course. But I'm impressed, Olivia. You've identified several opportunities we've overlooked. Relief washed through me. Thank you. I'd be happy to present to your committee if that would be helpful. It would. She stood, extending her hand. I'll have my office coordinate with you. And Olivia? Whatever's happening with Daniel, and yes, rumors are circulating, it doesn't change my assessment of your capabilities. Remember that. After Sarah left, I allowed myself one moment of pure, unfiltered victory. The Levenson Foundation would be a prestigious client, exactly the kind of early win Morgan Financial Analytics needed. I was texting Kate to confirm our lunch when Megan appeared at my door, looking uncomfortable. There's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she's insistent. Before I could ask who, Sophia Reynolds walked past Megan into my office. In person, she was even more striking than in her Instagram photos. Tall, with artfully tousled honey blonde hair and the kind of effortless beauty that took considerable effort to maintain. Her designer outfit probably cost more than my office furniture. We need to talk, she announced, ignoring Megan entirely. You've ignored my messages long enough. I nodded to Megan, who closed the door behind her with a concerned glance. Ms. Reynolds? I remained seated, refusing to give her the psychological advantage of standing over me. What can I do for you? She took the visitor chair without being invited, crossing her long legs with practiced grace. This situation is damaging my professional reputation. I need it resolved. Your affair with my husband is hardly my responsibility to resolve, I replied coolly. It wasn't like that. She leaned forward. Daniel told me you had an arrangement. That the marriage was essentially over, just maintaining appearances for business reasons. I almost laughed. The oldest line in the book, and she'd believed it. Or claimed to, anyway. There was no arrangement. My voice remained steady. Daniel lied to you, just like he lied to me about Shanghai clients and emergency meetings. Something flickered across her perfect features. Doubt, perhaps, or calculation. Look, I don't care about your marriage drama. But Daniel's telling clients I knew he was married and pursued him anyway, that I was trying to secure business for my firm through personal means. Her manicured fingers tapped the arm of the chair. That narrative destroys my professional credibility. Now I understood. This wasn't about emotional entanglements. It was about business consequences. Daniel was sacrificing Sophia to preserve his own reputation. What exactly do you want from me? I asked. A joint statement. Something that makes clear neither of us knew the full situation. That we were both misled by Daniel. She pulled out her phone, swiping to a draft document. I've prepared something. We both come out looking like victims rather than villains. I didn't take the phone. So you want me to publicly announce that my husband of 15 years successfully hid an affair from me for months? That I was too oblivious to notice? All to salvage your reputation? It's the truth, isn't it? She challenged. You didn't know until recently. I knew enough, I replied. And I have no interest in making Daniel's transition to a relationship with you smoother by painting myself as a clueless wife. Her expression hardened. You're not the only one with something to lose here, Olivia. Daniel told me about the financial records you took. How you're using Morgan Klein's proprietary information. That's corporate espionage. So she was the source of the threatening texts. And clearly Daniel's willing accomplice in trying to intimidate me. Let me be very clear, Ms. Reynolds. I did not take or use any proprietary information from Morgan Klein. My business model is completely different from theirs, and I have documentation of every step I've taken in establishing my methodology. I stood, signaling the end of our conversation. Now, if you don't mind, I have actual work to do. Unlike some people, I don't secure clients through personal relationships with married executives. Sophia stood as well, her face flushing with anger. You've made a mistake. Daniel isn't someone you want as an enemy. And yet, here we are. I moved toward the door. I'd wish you luck with him, but we both know how that story ends. Just ask his previous assistant, or the marketing director from Apex Holdings, or the client representative from Westridge Capital. Daniel has a pattern. Her expression faltered slightly. She hadn't known about the others. You're lying, she said, but without conviction. Am I? Check his locked phone, the one with the Fox case. The password is 0428, his mother's birthday. You'll find your predecessors there. I opened the door. Goodbye, Ms. Reynolds. Please don't contact me again. After she left, Megan appeared with a concerned expression. Are you okay? She seemed like someone realizing she's been played? Yes. I sighed. If she returns, don't let her in. And add her to the list of people requiring appointments. My lunch with Kate was a welcome break from the morning's tensions. I told her about the meeting with Sarah Levenson and the confrontation with Sophia. So little Miss Homewrecker is worried about her professional reputation? Kate snorted. The irony is almost too perfect. She believed Daniel's story about our arrangement, I said, picking at my salad. Or claims to, anyway. They always do. Kate's voice held the wisdom of her own divorce experience. It's easier than acknowledging they're helping destroy someone's marriage. But why is she worried about her reputation now? It's not like affairs are rare in your industry. Daniel's throwing her under the bus, I explained. Telling clients she pursued him, used their relationship to secure business, probably to maintain his own reputation as a victim rather than a predator. Kate shook her head. And she still wants to salvage things with him. Some women never learn. She's invested, I pointed out, not just emotionally, but professionally. Her firm handles significant business for Morgan Klein. If Daniel cuts ties completely, she loses that account. Speaking of investment, Kate changed the subject. How did the Levenson meeting really go? You're being suspiciously modest. I allowed myself a small smile. It went well. She's taking my recommendations to their investment committee. If they sign on, it would be a major win. See? Kate raised her glass in a toast. Not even a week in business and you're already landing clients Daniel would kill for. No wonder he's playing dirty. After lunch, I returned to the office to prepare for tomorrow's legal meeting. Rita had sent over additional documentation we'd need, including sworn statements from former Morgan Klein employees confirming my limited access to proprietary information. I was reviewing these when my phone rang, an unfamiliar number with a Chicago area code. Olivia Morgan, I answered. Ms. Morgan, Evan Blackwell, Chicago Tribune Business Section. The reporter's voice was professional but eager. I'm writing a piece on your new venture and wanted to get your comment on some information I've received. My guard immediately went up. What information would that be? Sources claim you misappropriated confidential information from Morgan Klein Investments to establish your competing firm. That you're using proprietary models developed by your husband's company. Daniel's next move, media pressure. I chose my words carefully. Morgan Financial Analytics operates in a different market segment than Morgan Klein Investments. Our methodologies are distinct, our client base is different, and any claims of misappropriation are categorically false. So you deny taking confidential documents from Morgan Klein? I have not used any proprietary information from Morgan Klein in establishing my firm, I stated firmly. My business approach is based on my own expertise developed over 2 decades. In financial services, including my work before my marriage. And the sale of your husband's Aston Martin to fund your startup? The reporter pressed. Sources suggest this was done without his knowledge or consent. The vehicle was legally mine, I replied. Its conversion to business capital was a sound financial decision. I have no further comment on personal matters. Mr. Morgan claims, Mr. Morgan can address his claims through proper legal channels, I interrupted. Now, if you're interested in writing about Morgan Financial Analytics' focus on identifying investment opportunities for women entrepreneurs, an underserved market with significant growth potential, I'm happy to provide information. Otherwise, this conversation is over. There was a pause, then. I'd be interested in learning more about your business model. Perhaps we could schedule an interview. I agreed to a meeting next week, ending the call with mixed feelings. Media attention could be beneficial for a new firm, or devastating if focused on personal drama rather than professional capabilities. By late afternoon, I was mentally exhausted, but still had preparations to complete for tomorrow's legal meeting. I sent Megan home early and settled in for what would likely be a long evening. A knock at my office door startled me. The building should have been empty except for security. Victor Chen stood in the doorway, expression grave. Olivia, we need to talk. I gestured to the visitor chair, instantly alert. What's happened? Victor sat, placing a folder on my desk. Daniel approached my firm this afternoon, offered us exclusive access to a new investment opportunity Morgan Klein is developing. Very favorable terms. I understood immediately. In exchange for dropping me as a client and retracting my recommendation to Sarah Levenson, Victor confirmed. Plus a public statement that your business methodologies seemed suspiciously similar to Morgan Klein's approach. The comprehensive nature of Daniel's attack didn't surprise me. He never did anything halfway. What did you tell him? I asked, though I could guess from Victor's presence that he could take his offer and shove it somewhere anatomically challenging. Victor's expression darkened. I don't respond well to attempted manipulation. But Olivia, you should know, he's approaching other potential supporters too. Making similar offers or threats. He's trying to isolate me professionally, I concluded. Cut off potential clients, resources, allies. Exactly. Victor tapped the folder he'd brought. That's why I'm here. Inside is a list of 5 potential clients who align perfectly with your focus on women entrepreneurs. All are looking for exactly the kind of analysis you provide. None have existing relationships with Morgan Klein. He slid the folder toward me. Also included is an invitation to speak at next month's Chicago Women in Finance Symposium. As a favor to me, they've agreed to add you to the panel on emerging investment strategies. I was momentarily speechless. Victor, I don't know what to say. Say you'll stop working tonight and get some rest. He stood. Tomorrow's meeting with Daniels. Lawyers will be challenging. You need to be at your best. Why are you helping me? I asked. Daniel's offering you business advantages. I'm just a startup with uncertain prospects. Victor paused at the door. 20 years ago, I recognized your talent instantly. Then I watched you set it aside to support Daniel's ambitions. Now you're reclaiming that potential. He smiled slightly. Besides, I've never much liked Daniel Morgan. Too entitled. Too convinced of his own brilliance. After Victor left, I reviewed the materials he'd provided. The potential clients were, indeed, perfect matches for Morgan Financial Analytics, established businesses led by women entrepreneurs looking for strategic investment guidance. The symposium invitation was equally valuable. Being featured as a panelist would establish my credibility in Chicago's financial community, independent of my connection to Daniel or Morgan Klein. I was organizing these materials when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, not Sophia's this time. Daniel knows about your meeting with Levenson. Wants details. Be careful. JJ. Jennifer Parker? Daniel's executive assistant for the past 3 years. A quiet, efficient woman who saw and heard everything at Morgan Klein. I saved the message, without responding. Another piece of the puzzle. Someone inside Morgan Klein was feeding me information. Whether out of loyalty to me or animosity toward Daniel was unclear, but the warning was valuable nonetheless. By 9 p.m., I'd finished my preparations for tomorrow's legal meeting and was gathering my things to leave when Megan called. "Sorry to bother you after hours," she began. "But there's something you should know. I was having drinks with my roommate at Benchmark, and I overheard two guys from Morgan Klein talking. They mentioned your name." I sat back down. "What did they say?" "They were discussing tomorrow's meeting. One of them, I think his name was Eric, said Daniel was planning some kind of nuclear option if you didn't agree to his terms." Eric Donovan, Daniel's head of legal affairs, a man who believed winning justified any means necessary. Did they elaborate on what that meant? Not really. Just that Daniel said he'd rather burn everything down than let you succeed with his resources. After thanking Megan for the information, I called Rita to relay the warning. "It's probably just tough talk," she reassured me, "but we'll be prepared for anything. Get some rest, Olivia. Tomorrow will be intense." Sleep eluded me that night. I tossed and turned in Kate's guest room, my mind racing through scenarios for tomorrow's confrontation. What was Daniel's nuclear option? What leverage did he think he had beyond the claims of misappropriated information? My phone buzzed at 11:23 p.m. Another text from Jay. "Check your private email. Sent documents you should see before tomorrow. Jay." In my private email account was a message from an anonymous sender containing scanned documents, internal Morgan Klein communications discussing how to handle my departure, and the launch of Morgan Financial Analytics. One email from Daniel to Eric Donovan contained the smoking gun. "I don't care what it takes. Fabricate evidence if necessary. Make it look like she stole proprietary information. She can't be allowed to succeed with my name, my money, my reputation." I forwarded everything to Rita immediately, my hands shaking with a mixture of rage and vindication. Daniel wasn't just fighting dirty. He was potentially committing fraud, creating false evidence to support his claims against me. Rita called within minutes. "Where did you get these?" "An anonymous source inside Morgan Klein," I explained. "Someone with access to Daniel's communications. If these are authentic, they completely undermine their case," Rita said. "But we need to verify their legitimacy first. Digital documents can be manipulated." Jay would know, I realized. Jennifer Parker, Daniel's executive assistant. She would have access to his emails, his calendar, everything. Can you contact her? Get her to confirm? I thought about it. Not directly. It would put her job at risk. But I might have another way to verify. After ending the call with Rita, I texted Kate. "Need a favor. Do you still have contacts at Morgan Klein from the office redesign?" Kate had designed the Morgan Klein offices 2 years ago, working closely with their facilities team. Her reply came quickly. "Jim in IT still owes me for fixing his home theater setup. What do you need?" "Information on their email system. Specifically, authentication protocols." By midnight, I had what I needed. Confirmation that Morgan Klein's email system used a specific digital signature that would be nearly impossible to fake without inside access. I sent the information to Rita, who promised to have her firm's technical experts verify the documents before our meeting. As I finally drifted toward sleep around 1 a.m., my phone buzzed one last time. A text from the number I now knew was Jennifer Parker's. "There's more. We'll try to send tomorrow. Stay strong. Many of us are rooting for you. Jay." I fell asleep with that thought providing unexpected comfort. I wasn't fighting alone. For every ally Daniel had cultivated through fear and favor, I had supporters who believed in me and what I was building. Tomorrow would be a battle, perhaps the most difficult confrontation of my life. But unlike Daniel, who fought to protect what he had, I was fighting to create something new, and that made all the difference. Morning arrived with a sense of impending reckoning. The meeting with Daniel and his lawyers was scheduled for 2 p.m. at Rita's office. I dressed carefully in a charcoal gray suit that projected confidence without aggression, professional without being unapproachable. Kate hugged me at the door. Remember who you are? Not Daniel Morgan's wife, not the woman who sold his car. You're Olivia Morgan, financial analyst extraordinaire and emerging force in Chicago's business community. I smiled despite my nerves. When did you become a motivational speaker? Since my sister decided to take on the Chicago financial establishment, she replied. Now go kick ass. As I drove to Rita's office, my phone buzzed with a text from Megan. Sarah Levenson's office called. The investment committee wants to meet next Tuesday. They're interested in moving forward. One small victory before the battle. I allowed myself a moment of pure satisfaction before refocusing on the challenge. Ahead. Rita was waiting in the conference room of her downtown office, surrounded by associates and documentation. The technical experts had verified the authenticity of Jennifer's documents. These are legitimate, Rita confirmed. And they completely undermine their case. If Daniel authorized the fabrication of evidence, that's potentially criminal. Will it be enough? I asked. To counter their claims? Absolutely. But Olivia, she hesitated. This escalates the conflict significantly. If we present these documents, we're essentially accusing Daniel of fraud. He won't back down easily after that. I thought about it carefully. What are our alternatives? We could try to negotiate a settlement without revealing what we know. Use it as insurance rather than a weapon. The Rita of 2 days ago would have recommended that approach. The fact that she was presenting alternatives suggested the situation had evolved. What changed? I asked directly. Rita's expression hardened. I don't appreciate being lied to. Daniel's team presented documentation this morning that they claim proves you took proprietary information. Based on these emails, we know that evidence is fabricated. That crosses a line professionally. I nodded. Then we use the emails. I'm not negotiating with someone willing to commit fraud to destroy me. As the hour of the meeting approached, Rita's associates arranged the conference room strategically. Our documentation displayed professionally, their forged evidence ready to be dismantled. At precisely 2 p.m., Daniel arrived with Eric Donovan and 2 additional lawyers. He wore his power suit, the same dark blue Brioni he favored for major client presentations. His expression was controlled but radiating confidence. Our eyes met across the conference table. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd married, the ambitious, brilliant strategist I'd fallen in love with. Then his mask of corporate coldness descended again. Let's get started, Eric Donovan began, spreading documents across the conference table with theatrical precision. We're here to discuss serious allegations of corporate espionage and intellectual property theft. Rita remained calm, her expression neutral. Before we proceed, I'd like to clarify the purpose of this meeting. My understanding was that we're discussing divorce settlement terms. The two matters are inseparable, Eric countered. Mrs. Morgan's actions in establishing her competing firm directly impact the division of assets. The deliberate use of Mrs. Morgan wasn't lost on me. A subtle reinforcement that I was merely an extension of Daniel, not a separate entity. Daniel hadn't spoken yet. He sat watching me, his expression calculating, looking for weaknesses, for signs of fear. I met his gaze steadily, refusing to be intimidated. As you can see from these documents, Eric continued, sliding a folder toward Rita, we have evidence that Mrs. Morgan accessed and removed confidential material from Morgan Klein servers, material she is now using as the foundation of her competing business. Rita flipped through the documents without reaction. The emails Jennifer had provided had prepared us for this. These are serious allegations, Rita acknowledged. Do you have proof that these documents were actually accessed by my client? Server logs? Security records? We have witness testimony, Eric said confidently, from multiple sources confirming Mrs. Morgan accessed these files. Witnesses who will testify under oath? Rita asked mildly. Daniel shifted slightly, the first tell that he was unsettled. He knew as well as I did that fabricated testimony wouldn't hold up under deposition. Of course, Eric affirmed. And we have evidence that Mrs. Morgan used Morgan Klein's proprietary investment models in her presentation to the Levenson Foundation yesterday. My heart skipped. They had someone watching my meeting with Sarah Levenson. Interesting claim, Rita responded, especially given that my client's approach with the Levenson Foundation focused on women-led enterprises in emerging sectors, an investment strategy distinctly different from Morgan Klein's established model. Surface differences hiding structural similarities, Eric dismissed. Our experts have analyzed her materials. Experts who haven't actually seen her presentation, Rita pointed out. Unless you're admitting to corporate espionage of your own? Eric's smile tightened. We have sources. Well, Rita said, this is all very dramatic. But before we continue down this path, I think we should address some documentation of our own. She nodded to her associate, who distributed copies of the emails Jennifer had provided, the ones showing Daniel instructing Eric to fabricate evidence against me. The color drained from Eric's face as he recognized his own correspondence. Daniel remained outwardly composed, but I saw the slight tightening around his eyes, his tell when a negotiation had taken an unexpected turn. Where did you get these? Eric demanded. They were provided to us by a confidential source, Rita replied. Their authenticity has been verified by independent technical experts who can testify to the Morgan Klein email signature protocols. Daniel finally broke his silence. This is completely inappropriate. Private communications between myself and counsel are privileged. Not when they discuss committing fraud, Rita countered. Fabricating evidence to present in legal proceedings voids privilege under the crime-fraud exception. The atmosphere in the room shifted palpably. Daniel's lawyers huddled, whispering urgently. I'd like to speak with my client privately, Eric said finally. Rita nodded. Of course, we'll give you the room. In the hallway outside, Rita's confidence was evident. They're scrambling. Those emails undermine their entire strategy. What happens now? I asked. They'll regroup, try to find a way to salvage their position. But the leverage has shifted dramatically. When we returned to the conference room 15 minutes later, Daniel's demeanor had changed. The confident corporate raider was gone, replaced by the calculating strategist I knew so well. I'm proposing we set aside these distractions and focus on a reasonable settlement, he offered. Clearly, emotions have led to actions on both sides that don't serve either of our interests. I nearly laughed at his attempt to equate my legitimate business venture with his fraudulent evidence. What are you proposing? Rita asked. Olivia keeps the Michigan property and her personal accounts as previously discussed. In exchange, she rebrands her firm to remove the Morgan name and agrees not to solicit Morgan Klein clients for a period of 2 years. I shook my head. The Morgan name is mine too. I've earned it, and I have no interest in Morgan Klein's client base. My business model targets an entirely different market. This is non-negotiable, Daniel stated flatly. The Morgan name belongs to the firm. The firm you built with my support, I reminded him. The firm that benefited from my unpaid labor, my networking, my insights for 15 years. Insights you're now using against me. He shot back, the first crack in his professional facade. Not against you, I corrected. Independent of you. There's a difference, Eric interrupted, trying to regain control of the negotiation. Perhaps a compromise. Mrs. Morgan retains her personal accounts and the Michigan property, plus a one-time settlement of $2 million. In exchange, she rebrands her firm and signs a non-compete covering Morgan Klein's existing client base. Rita looked to me. My decision. The settlement amount is acceptable, I said slowly. The non-compete limited to Morgan Klein's existing Fortune 500 clients is acceptable. But the Morgan name stays. Daniel's expression hardened. Why? Why is the name so important to you? Because I earned it, I replied simply. 15 years, Daniel. 15 years of supporting you, advising you, standing beside you while you built your success on my unacknowledged contributions. I'm not erasing that history for your comfort. The room fell silent. Daniel and I locked eyes across the table. No longer husband and wife, not quite adversaries. Two professionals recognizing a fundamental impasse. There's something else, I added. The fabricated evidence needs to be acknowledged and destroyed. All copies. And I want written confirmation that Morgan Klein will make no further claims regarding proprietary information. Eric started to object, but Daniel raised a hand, silencing him. Fine, he conceded. The name, the settlement, the non-compete limited to existing Fortune 500 clients, and the acknowledgement regarding the evidence. But I want something in return. You're hardly in a position to make demands, Rita pointed out. Nevertheless, Daniel's gaze remained fixed on me. I want your copies of the financial records you took, all of them, and your word that they won't be used against Morgan Klein or its executives. He was protecting himself from potential future exposure, both professional and perhaps legal, if those records ever became public. I took those records as insurance, not ammunition, I reminded him. I've never had any intention of using them unless provoked. Your word, Olivia. And all. Copies, I considered. The records were valuable leverage, but holding on to them meant remaining tethered to Daniel and Morgan Klein. Perhaps there was freedom in letting them go. Agreed, I said finally. With one condition. Jennifer Parker receives severance equal to 2 years' salary and a recommendation letter for her next position. Daniel's eyebrows rose slightly. Jennifer? My assistant? I kept my expression neutral, giving nothing away about Jennifer's role in providing the emails. She's been caught in the middle of an uncomfortable situation. I want to ensure she's treated fairly. A moment of calculation, then understanding dawned in Daniel's eyes. He knew. But proving Jennifer's involvement would be difficult, and pursuing it would only extend our conflict. Acceptable, he agreed. She was planning to leave anyway. With the major terms established, our lawyers took over, drafting language and clarifying details. By 5 p.m., we had a framework agreement that would be formalized in the coming weeks, The meeting concluded, Daniel asked for a moment alone with me. Rita looked concerned, but I nodded my assent. When the room had cleared, Daniel and I sat across from each other, the conference table between us like the chasm that had opened in our marriage. Why did you do it? I asked, the question that had lingered since that text message on our anniversary. 15 years, Daniel. Was it boredom? Entitlement? What? He considered for a moment, then answered with unexpected honesty. Power, success. It changes you. Makes you believe you deserve more, that normal constraints don't apply to you. That's not an explanation, it's an excuse. Maybe. He shrugged slightly. But it's the truth. I started believing my own mythology, the brilliant Daniel Morgan, self-made success story. I forgot the partnership that made it possible. You didn't forget? I corrected him. You deliberately erased it, diminished my contributions, treated me as an accessory to your success, rather than a partner in creating it. He didn't deny it. And now? This firm of yours? Is it about proving something to me? It was at first, I admitted. But not anymore. Now it's about reclaiming the potential I set aside to support you, about building something that reflects my vision, not yours. Daniel nodded slowly. You'll succeed. You always were the better analyst. The compliment, sincere or strategic, didn't matter. I didn't need his validation anymore. Goodbye, Daniel. I stood, gathering my things. I hope you find whatever you're looking for with Sophia, or whoever comes after her." As I reached the door, he called after me. "The car, my Aston Martin. Did you sell it just to hurt me?" I paused, then turned back. "No. I sold it because it was a sound financial decision, an underperforming asset converted to venture capital. You taught me that." His surprised laugh followed me into the hallway, where Rita was waiting. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Better than okay," I replied. "It's over." The next morning, I arrived at the office early. The weight of the confrontation with Daniel had lifted, leaving room for the excitement of building Morgan Financial Analytics. Megan was already there, organizing the materials for my meeting with Sarah Levenson's investment committee. "The lawyers from yesterday sent these over," she said, handing me a thick envelope. "And Ms. Levenson called personally to confirm Tuesday's committee meeting." I opened the envelope to find the formal agreement largely as we'd discussed, already signed by Daniel. The Morgan name would remain mine. The settlement would fund further expansion of the firm. The non-compete provided ample room to build my client base while respecting professional boundaries. It wasn't just a victory, it was freedom. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer Parker. "Just submitted my resignation. 2 years severance approved. Thank you. Let me know if you ever need an executive assistant. J." I smiled, typing back. "Position might be opening soon. Let's talk next week." Kate arrived at noon with champagne and cupcakes. "Victory celebration? Seems appropriate," I agreed, accepting a glass. Though it feels less like victory and more like liberation. "To liberation, then," Kate proposed, raising her glass. "And to Morgan Financial Analytics, built with an Aston Martin and fueled by righteous revenge." I laughed. It wasn't about revenge. Not entirely, anyway. Kate's expression was skeptical. "Selling his prized possession to fund the business he said you couldn't build? That's textbook revenge, sis." "Maybe," I conceded. "But the best revenge isn't destruction, it's creation. Building something he said I couldn't build, succeeding where he predicted I would fail." "Deep," Kate teased, "but I still love that you sold his car." Later that afternoon, Victor Chen called to confirm our dinner plans, a strategy session for the upcoming Chicago Women in Finance Symposium. The panel would position Morgan Financial Analytics as a thought leader in identifying overlooked investment opportunities in women-led enterprises. "How did the meeting with Daniel go?" he asked. "Better than expected," I told him. "We reached an agreement that lets both of us move forward independently." "And he accepted you're keeping the Morgan name?" "Eventually," I confirmed. "After we revealed we knew about the fabricated evidence." Victor's low whistle conveyed his appreciation for the maneuver. "Checkmate. Well played, Olivia." "I had good allies," I acknowledged. "Your support made a critical difference." "The financial community is watching," Victor advised. "Your next moves will define Morgan Financial Analytics in their eyes. The Levenson Foundation could be a game changer if you land them." "I intend to," I assured him. "My presentation is ready." After ending the call, I spent the rest of the afternoon refining my analysis for the Levenson Foundation. Without the shadow of Daniel's threats hanging over me, I could focus fully on the work itself. The complex patterns of market behavior, the identification of undervalued opportunities, the precision of financial analysis that had always been my true passion. At 6 p.m., Megan poked her head into my office. "There's someone here to see you. She says it's important." Eleanor Morgan stood in the reception area, as impeccably dressed as always. Her expression was unreadable as she surveyed the modest but professional space of Morgan Financial Analytics. "Eleanor." I greeted her cautiously. "This is unexpected. May we speak privately?" she requested. In my office, she declined the offered seat, preferring to stand. Power positioning? A Morgan family trait? Daniel told me about your agreement, she began. I must say, I'm surprised he allowed you to keep the name. He didn't have much choice, I replied evenly. But I doubt you came here to discuss that, and he studied me with newfound consideration. No, I came to understand something. All these years I saw you as the woman who married my son for his potential, the social climber who recognized his brilliance and attached herself to it. I nearly interrupted to correct her, but she continued. I was wrong. You saw his potential, yes. But you also enhanced it, directed it. The Daniel who built Morgan Klein was shaped by your influence, your guidance. I didn't recognize that until now. This was as close to an apology as Eleanor Morgan would ever come. Why the change of heart? I asked. I had lunch with Victor Chen yesterday, she explained. He shared some insights about your contributions to Morgan Klein's success over the years. Contributions Daniel never acknowledged publicly. I made a mental note to thank Victor for that unexpected support. What happens now? I asked. Are you here to negotiate on Daniel's behalf? No. Eleanor's expression softened marginally. I'm here because Morgan Financial Analytics carries my family name. I wanted to see for myself what kind of steward you would be. She moved toward the door, then paused. The Levenson Foundation would be an excellent first client. Sarah and I serve on the Metropolitan Museum Board together. I may have mentioned your innovative approach to women-led enterprise investment. With that parting bombshell, Eleanor Morgan exited as regally as she had arrived, leaving me momentarily speechless. My phone buzzed with a text from Kate. Dinner at Maple and Ash to celebrate your victory? My treat. I smiled, typing back. Make it 8, Corey. I have some work to finish first. As evening settled over Chicago, I stood at my office window watching the city transition from workday to nightlife. Somewhere across town, Daniel was in his penthouse, perhaps already rebuilding his life with Sophia or someone new. The thought brought no pain, no regret, just a distant acknowledgement of a chapter closed. My desk held the future, client proposals, marketing materials, financial analyses bearing the Morgan Financial Analytics logo, the firm born from betrayal but built on expertise, funded by an Aston Martin but fueled by 15 years of suppressed ambition. 3 months later, Morgan Financial Analytics had exceeded even my optimistic projections. The Levenson Foundation had become our anchor client, their endorsement opening doors throughout Chicago's financial community. We'd expanded to a team of 6 analysts and moved to larger offices in the same building. Daniel and I finalized our divorce with minimal drama. He'd stabilized Morgan Klein after the initial shock of our separation and apparently learned his lesson about fabricating evidence. Sophia was no longer in the picture, replaced by a legal associate from his firm, according to Kate's impeccable society sources. I rarely thought about him anymore. Occasionally, his name would appear in financial news, or I'd spot his new Tesla, the Aston Martin's replacement, in traffic. But those moments produced only a distant recognition, like acknowledging an acquaintance from a former life. My transformation from corporate wife to CEO hadn't been without challenges. Some doors remained closed to me, clients loyal to Daniel, or intimidated by our connection. But for every closed door, 2 others opened, particularly among Chicago's growing community of women entrepreneurs, seeking financial guidance from someone who understood both numbers and ambition. On the anniversary of my firm's founding, exactly 1 year after Daniel had canceled our 15th wedding anniversary dinner, I hosted a celebration at Ciel, the restaurant where we had been supposed to celebrate. The symmetry wasn't lost on my team, though I never explicitly acknowledged it. As I stood addressing my assembled employees, clients, and supporters, the journey of the past year crystallized into perfect clarity. A year ago, I made a decision to reclaim my professional identity, I told them. Not out of anger or revenge, but because I recognized that the expertise I'd developed over 2 decades shouldn't remain in the shadows. Morgan Financial Analytics was born from that recognition. I raised my glass. To all of you who took a chance on a new firm with big ambitions, to the clients who trusted us with their financial futures, to the team that made our success possible, and to the road ahead. As applause filled the room, I caught sight of Victor, Chen raising his glass with particular enthusiasm from his table near the front. Beside him sat Jennifer Parker, now my executive assistant and operations manager, and Kate, who had designed our expanded offices with her signature flair. The celebration continued late into the evening. I circulated among the guests, accepting congratulations and discussing future opportunities. It was nearly midnight when I finally slipped away, leaving the party in Kate's capable hands. Outside, the Chicago night was alive with possibility. I breathed deeply, savoring the moment of achievement. My phone buzzed with a text, Rita Chen, sharing news that Morgan Financial Analytics had been nominated for the Chicago Business Journal's Breakout Firm of the Year award. Another milestone, another validation. As I walked toward the waiting car, I passed a familiar figure standing beside a gleaming Aston Martin, not Daniel's former DB11, but a newer model in silver. Victor Chen smiled, offering me the keys. "Happy anniversary," said. "I thought you might appreciate the symbolism." I laughed, shaking my head. "The symbolism is perfect, but I don't need an Aston Martin. My Audi works just fine." "It's not about need," Victor pointed out. "Sometimes it's about marking a moment, claiming a victory. Besides, I bought this at auction last week. The previous owner made some poor investment choices recently, had to liquidate his assets." Daniel. The realization was both surprising and strangely fitting. "One spin around the block?" Victor suggested. "For closure?" I hesitated, then accepted. The keys. The engine purred to life with the same distinctive sound I remembered from Daniel's car. But this time, I was in the driver's seat. We cruised through downtown Chicago, the city lights reflecting off the Aston's sleek surfaces. Not a replacement for what I'd sold, but a symbol of how completely the wheel had turned. "I'm not keeping it," I told Victor as we returned to the restaurant. "But thank you for the moment." "I never expected you to," he admitted. "It's already donated to the Children's Hospital charity auction next month. In your name." I smiled, recognizing the perfect resolution. Even better. Later that night, as I stood on the balcony of my new penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. Not just the year since selling Daniel's car, but the 15 years before that. Years when I'd allowed my own ambitions to be subsumed by his, when I'd accepted the role of supportive wife rather than equal partner. The mistake hadn't been supporting Daniel's dreams. The mistake had been surrendering my own. Morgan Financial Analytics represented the reclamation of those dreams, the analyst I'd been, the leader I'd become, the CEO I was meant to be all along. My phone buzzed with a final text for the night. From Kate. "Saw you joyriding in an Aston Martin. Midlife crisis already?" I laughed, typing back. "Just closing a circle. The view's better from the driver's seat." As Chicago's lights twinkled below, I raised my glass to the woman I'd rediscovered, the one who'd been there all along, waiting for the perfect moment to emerge. The woman who'd turned betrayal into opportunity, loss into creation, an ending into a beginning. The woman who'd sold her husband's sports car and built an empire of her own, not out of revenge, but reclamation. And that had made all the difference. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.